quite know what's happening. I think I've said on this show a million times, how is he even going to camp if he doesn't have a deal? Dianna, you're observing the situation closely. I wonder what you think about where things stand between Lamar and the Ravens.
Right, so the simple answer is money, right? That's what it always comes down to. Lamar Jackson obviously has a number that he's shooting for, and the Baltimore Ravens feel that he's only worth a certain number, which then starts to make you think and take a look at how do the Ravens view their quarterback, right? Are they viewing him as an elite quarterback that deserves the money that we'd see a top 5 quarterback get paid right now? Or perhaps are they not seeing him in that same arena? Perhaps they're only looking at him as just a superior athlete who's incredible. They're changing the entire offense for him. So that tells me they're in on him. But maybe they're just not all the way at this point. And you know, you mentioned that it's been really quiet. It's good to remind everyone that he doesn't have an agent. He represents himself.
Right.
And the Ravens have kept this really quiet. They want him there. Camp is going to be coming up in 2 weeks now. And he has said on Twitter he's going to show up. He's not there for the voluntary ones, but mini camp, he will be there. Of course, he'll be fine, too, if he doesn't show up. So in terms of the future of Lamar Jackson at this point, do I think he would play without an extension getting done? I do. I think he would go out there and play and take that chance on himself. And I think that's what the Ravens are sort of hoping he does as well, because then they can just franchise tag him the following season.
And I think the impression is that the Ravens are going to give him a blank check because of the MVP, because he's another worldly talent. But you bring up that important point, elite athlete, but how do they see him as a quarterback? Ninko, what do you think about this?
Well, listen, if I was in the front office, which they wouldn't put me there because I would pay Lamar because I think he's that good of a football player. But listen, these guys are smart. They do the analytics. You think they do all that stuff about football players and their height and weight, and they don't do about contact. So Hembo gave me a stat line, which is pretty crazy to think that Lamar has been hit 821 times in his short career. So I can guarantee the Ravens are looking at the amount of contact that he receives and longevity the next 4 to 5 years. Can he sustain that kind of contact without his game changing? Because is Lamar the same player if he loses a step, or if he can't do the same things at year 8 or 9 that he did in the beginning parts of his career? So, for me, I would pay him because I know how much he means to that organization. But unfortunately, these teams, they pay for the future. They don't care about what you've done in the past. It's all about potential for the next 5 years. And unfortunately, I think that the reason that they're not giving him that top 5 quarterback money is because they're concerned about his longevity with how many contact and big hits that he has to take with his style play.
That is really interesting. Now, Brooke, you cover the Steelers. They're the division rivals. How does what you see with the Steelers and you're talking with them color what you think might be going on in this situation?
You know what? Ninko just had that Hembo stat about how many times Lamar's been hit. In the Steelers' second game against Lamar last year, they sacked him 7 times. To me, that ties into what Mike Tomlin said in 2020 when he said, "We respect him, but we do not fear him."
Oh.
Love a good Mike Tomlinism. But that, to me, sums up, I think, how the AFC North as a whole feels about him. This guy, he's still a very special talent. I'm not going to say teams have Lamar Jackson figured out. We are not going to walk down that path because I don't think you're ever going to have him all the way figured out. But they're not as scared of him maybe as they were his first couple of years here. The Steelers, Lamar Jackson is 2-3 against the Steelers. He is also 12-8 against the AFC North, completing 63% of his passes. He's just not as good in his own division, and that to me tells me what other teams think of him.
I think we can wrap this up with one thing. When Rob was talking about Lamar, we were showing that highlight rip of Lamar, and what did we see? We saw him running with tremendous speed and tremendous athleticism. What didn't we really show there? Success in the pocket as a traditional pocket passer. And those are the quarterbacks that are getting paid top dollar. That's the story, right? When you see him, you see the running. And yeah, it's fantastic. And they've been able to choreograph their offense that way. But that's not going to get you paid the money that I'm sure he's looking for. I don't know if the Ravens are going to come up to the number that he's looking for. but Rob paints a perfect picture of those concerns just based on what we're seeing here on film.
Yeah, let me play devil's advocate here and like flip it a little bit. So I totally get what you're saying, this idea that what are we seeing from him in the pocket? And I just want to make it clear for everybody watching, nobody is saying Lamar Jackson is not an amazing quarterback. I mean, that goes without saying.
He ranked 17th in the pocket over the last 2 seasons in football.
And Nico, how do you think that plays out in terms of how they pay him? Because you're talking about if he doesn't, in terms of changing his game and improving that part of it.
Well, first of all, they need to help him. So he needs a little bit more. Last year, I know they dealt with a lot of injuries, and he has a go-to tight end. But if they could add a couple more pieces for receiving core, I know they have young receivers right now. They got speed at the receiver position, but they need just a few more pieces to give him a little bit more confidence. And he's going to have to progress. Kind of like how, you look at the early parts of Mike Vick's career. Michael Vick was a dynamic, explosive runner, but then as he got older, he became a pocket quarterback, and he would even say, yeah, I was looking to scramble, but I wanted to throw the football. So I think Lamar is just going to have to adapt and change, and as he gets a little bit older and he sees all the different looks and all the different defenses, to adjust and start to protect himself a little bit. I mean, going sliding, not taking contact, running out of bounds, throwing the football. I think all those little things, because every single hit, it adds up. So as a player and as his longevity and his earning career and in his earnings throughout his career, pile together, he's got to make sure he takes care of himself.
Okay, I love when people in the NFL are watching the show, right? Because everyone's got opinions about Lamar, especially. I have a defensive coordinator in the league just texting me because what you guys are missing here, preparing for him is like college is getting ready to play Army or Navy. It's a totally different offense than anyone else in the NFL. It doesn't matter. He's always a threat, and this guy's not with the Baltimore Ravens.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.